The joint German-British decision to procure a new fleet of M3S amphibious bridging and ferry vehicles via OCCAR is less about hardware shopping and more about restoring a military art that Europe neglected for a generation. Since the post-Cold War drawdown, the alliance largely assumed that permanent bridges, permissive terrain and benign logistics would be available on demand. The wars of the last decade, and the accelerating militarization along Europe's eastern flank, have contradicted that assumption. River lines have re-emerged as operational choke points, and the ability to project heavy forces across them at speed is a strategic currency in its own right. Against that backdrop, Berlin and London are buying maneuver, not metal. The acquisition sits inside the Wide Wet Gap Crossing Program, a quietly crucial framework that consolidates demand and standards among allies. Purchasing through OCCAR does three things at once: it makes the bill predictable for finance ministries, the timetable more realistic for industry and the technical baseline coherent for field units that must interoperate under stress. The result is not only a catalog entry for a new bridge ferry, but a repeatable mechanism for refreshing a capability that naturally decays without sustained investment and training. What distinguishes the M3S from the 1990s era equipment it replaces is the integration of survivability, automation and allied plug-and-play into a single platform. The monocoque hull and steerable pump jets are design choices aimed at agility and precision in currents rather than raw speed on flat water. The real advantage lies in reducing time on bank, where bridging units are most vulnerable. Digital diagnostics and an improved human-machine interface compress setup timelines and lower the cognitive load on crews, which matters as much as steel thickness when crossings are conducted under observation, electronic attack or intermittent fire. The platform's dual identity, self-propelled ferry and modular bridge section, also turns a perennial planning dilemma into a tactical option. Commanders have historically had to choose between ferrying heavy assets quickly in small packets or building a static crossing that moves entire formations. With the M3S, those modes are not competing concepts so much as phases within the same operation. A crossing might begin with a ferry shuttle to establish a foothold and expand into a full bridge when tempo and terrain allow. That flexibility widens the playbook for deception, misdirection and rapid exploitation, complicating an adversary's targeting process. Interoperability is not an afterthought bolted on for marketing value, it is a frontline requirement. Compatibility with the standard ribbon bridge, improved ribbon bridge and folding float bridge means British and German engineers can trade sections and reinforce each other's spans without bespoke adapters. In practice, this translates into multinational crossing drills that feel less like experiments and more like repetition of standard plays. In a crisis, the difference between works on paper and works with a single radio call is measured in hours saved and casualties avoided. The M3S is designed to live on the right side of that line. Strategic lift and road mobility complete the picture. Europe's river network is dense, but so is its civilian infrastructure, from bridges with weight restrictions to urban choke points that turn heavy convoys into headlines. The fact that the new systems can move by a 400M or C-17 and then roll legally on European roads is not a luxury, it is the price of relevance. A bridging capability that cannot reach the right river in time is a museum piece. By anchoring production in Germany, the program also shortens the chain for spares and upgrades, an industrial hedge against disrupted supply lines or political friction outside Europe. There is a broader doctrinal point embedded in the purchase. For 2 decades, NATO land forces prioritized precision fires, armored protection and ISR, often at the expense of the unglamorous enablers that convert combat power into operational momentum. Wet gap crossing was too often treated as a specialist niche. The renewed attention from Berlin and London signals an overdue rebalancing. Mobility is being elevated to parity with lethality and protection, not because it is fashionable but because modern operations punish predictability. Armies that cannot cross rivers at the time and place of their choosing are reduced to travelers waiting for bridges, and adversaries plan accordingly. Eastern Europe's terrain makes the case palpable. Large, fast rivers intersect aging infrastructure, and seasonal floods challenge even well-prepared engineers. Deliberate crossings will still demand reconnaissance, deception and protection from fires, but the technical bar for success drops when platforms like the M3S cut deployment times and integrate smoothly with Allied gear. The claim that trained crews can bring a bridge online in minutes rather than hours should not be read as marketing hype so much as an input to the operational calculus: shorter windows for enemy interdiction, higher chances of maintaining surprise, and less exposure of supporting logistics. The industrial and political dimensions are equally consequential. Expanding production in Kaiserslautern under a national growth strategy aligns defense procurement with domestic economic aims, local jobs, sovereign control over key components, and a visible dividend for taxpayers who increasingly demand that defense euros recycle at home. For NATO, that means more than symbolism. A European supply base that can scale output quickly improves resilience across the alliance, especially for high-demand items that wear out through training as much as combat. Bridging equipment lives hard. The ability to repair and replenish without transatlantic friction will matter in a sustained crisis. In the end, the purchase is best understood as preemption. It anticipates problems before they manifest at scale: bridges dropped by sabotage or precision strike, bottlenecks formed by refugee flows or damaged infrastructure, and the tactical need to move armor where an adversary assumes it cannot go. The M3S will not solve every crossing challenge. No platform can guarantee a clean riverbank under fire, but it shifts probabilities in the right direction. For Germany and the United Kingdom, that shift translates into credible options at the operational level and a clearer message at the strategic one: Allied land forces intend to set the tempo on both banks, and the river is no longer a limit but a lane.